Hi, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got a very special guest. This is Carl from Oregon.
Howdy.
And Carl has spent the last, is it 1 week or two? About one?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd say like 5 or 6 days. Yeah, about one.
Is that okay? Yeah. So here at Mushroom Manor as a workawayer, and we've had a great time. He's been super helpful. And over the past few days we got rained out, didn't we?
We did get rained out a bit, but
so that's been an
tis the season.
It is. And today we thought that it would be quite nice to have a conversation about the carnivore diet and diabetes, because Carl is diabetic.
Yeah, I'm a type 1 diabetic, which I feel like I should make the distinction. I feel like a lot of people don't know this, and if I'm being quite honest, I didn't really know this until recently, but the difference between type 1 and type 2 is that, so type 1, the pancreas does not create enough insulin. So, meaning the pancreas either doesn't work or it just barely works. And type 2 is the body doesn't respond well to insulin. So, type 1 is a genetic disease, type 2 is a disease that anyone can develop by not maintaining a good diet. And so yeah, I guess we're here to talk about the influence of diet and diabetes.
And so you are type 1?
I am type 1, yes.
And when did that happen for you?
Well, so both of my sisters are diabetic, and I have 2 sisters. And they got it when they were, I think, 9 years old, and then the other 12. But I got it when I was 15. And so, from my understanding, it's a disease that can lie dormant for a while, and then it is triggered by genetics. It's not necessarily, triggered by diets and stuff, at least for type 1. But yeah, so I was 15 when I got it.
And how was, can I ask you about how that felt, how that impacted you?
Yeah, of course. Well, I remember I was staying over at a friend's house every weekend, and I don't know why I noticed it here, but I would notice that I would be really thirsty, my mouth would always be dry, and I would need to pee a lot. And I remember growing up, on our refrigerator we had this magnet that said, like, signs you might be diabetic, because,
Oh, because you had it in the family.
I had it in the family,
yeah.
So it was just a refrigerator magnet. And
I was going to say, whoa, what a coincidence.
Yeah, right, no. it was already, we had already had some diabetics in the family, so I remember just thinking to myself, could this be what that is? And I'd always considered myself the lucky one out of the family, because I didn't get it, and, I was a teenager at the time, and it's more rare to get it when you're older. Not impossible. I know people who've gotten it when they're 30, but yeah, I went home and asked my dad, and he looked worried. And we used a finger pricker to test my blood sugar, and it was sky high. So that means that my pancreas had already stopped working a little bit. And okay, so how it works with glucose is you eat, let's see, we get a lot of the glucose in our body, which is used as energy from foods that are high in carbohydrates, like bread, and insulin helps move the glucose from our blood into our cells. And so what was happening is the insulin was not...
Into our cells. Right.
The insulin was not enough to move the glucose into my cells, so it was just storing in my blood.
I see.
Yeah, and so that's why it showed up as high blood sugar, and yeah, it was a shock for our family, but I think initially I wasn't too concerned because I had 2 siblings that had it, and so it's kind of only become recently something that I've noticed having since living on my own.
When you say notice having, you mean notice like how it restricts your life, how it...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure like as someone with a chronic illness, how, I don't know, you see other people live, and you live alongside other people, and I see it as, I'm parallel to my peers until a certain point, and then I feel held back as they go forward. And I think a big thing with chronic illness is this push almost to continue forward even though you know you can't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you experience that too. You want to stay with everyone else, but sometimes your chronic illness doesn't allow you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the rest of the world ideally would accommodate that. Mm-hmm. And it does to some extent, but it doesn't always.
Right, and it does to some extent, and a lot of to a large extent it does. But I think there's also this internalized, at least for me, an internalized fear that it won't.
Yeah.
And that by it doing that, by the world, slowing down for me, I am in some way a burden. So chronic illness has, from my experience, not only physical effects, but also many psychological effects.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to inject every day, right?
Yeah, I do.
Several times a day.
Yeah, as many times as I eat, and sometimes more. This is what the pen looks like. And inside of it is a needle. Wow, this focuses well. And it's a cartridge of insulin. And so every time I eat, I calculate the ratio of carbohydrates to insulin, and I give myself that much insulin. And, it's hard because it's not like, it doesn't always work. There's so many things that influence how your body takes in insulin, like how much you've been exercising, which I believe has to do with the excess glucose that's stored in your liver and blood. And yeah, so it's not as simple as like, oh, I ate this much, now I give myself this much insulin.
Right.
There's tons of things at play, which is something that makes it so hard to manage.
And it can go wrong, can't it? If you administer the wrong amount, it can be very damaging. Is that right?
Yeah. So if I allow my blood sugar to go too high for too long, it can impact my organs in the long run, like my liver, eyesight. People lose their eyesight. There are a lot of people who lose limbs because of it, from too high blood sugar for too long time. But so you'd say, okay, just give yourself insulin then. But if you let it go too low, which insulin can do, then it's more immediately dangerous. You can go into, I believe it's called hypoglycemia, which is essentially slow blood sugar, which in my experience feels like I'm dying. So it's this balance between losing my eyesight in the future.
In the long term.
Yeah, and losing...
And immediately dying.
Yeah. Which the goal is to, stay in the middle of those two.
Wow, what a thing to live with.
Yeah.
And to constantly have to calculate. Yeah. And so you were saying that if you find somebody ill with diabetes, don't necessarily assume that you give them insulin. That could kill them. It's
a really funny thing. I feel like a lot of my friends, like some of my closest friends, when I talk to them about it, and I have an app on my phone, and it would beep when my blood sugar went low, and they'd hear it beep because it's a pretty annoying beep, and they'd say, "Oh, does that mean you need insulin?" And I say, "No, that means my blood sugar's low. If I gave myself insulin, I'd kill myself." And so I always do worry about being found unconscious.
Yeah, wow.
Because
with a pen on you.
With a pen on me, people would assume that that's what I need, I think.
Wow, yeah.
So yeah.
Because insulin can only lower your blood sugar, not raise it.
It can only lower your blood sugar,
but you need to have a nice balance, the right balance.
Glucose and insulin balance, yeah.
Right. So I didn't realize the ins and outs of that.
Most people don't. It's and I don't think everyone should undergo a course on every chronic disease, but I think it's another weight that people with chronic illnesses have to carry, is this kind of like educating people about it.
About their condition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently got a medical bracelet that says my name and that I'm type 1 diabetic, and it says, if unresponsive, Google what to do. Because I trust that over someone's first instinct, for sure.
Yeah, that's better than just going, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I'll stop this." Yeah. Wow, fascinating. So, well, I certainly have learned. You've educated me. I didn't know. But one of my first questions was with the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Being that one of the goals of the carnivore diet is to eliminate sugar entirely and be running on fat.
Yeah. And when you asked me this question, it occurred to me that, I mean, I know there are a lot of people who use diets to influence, their relationship with diabetes. But yeah, I feel like a lot of like vegan diets in my brain, like they still have carbs. You know, rice is vegan. There's so many things that are vegan that still have carbs, but
Sure.
the only thing that doesn't have carbs, to my knowledge, I mean, I could be missing some things, but to my knowledge, the only thing that really doesn't have carbs is meat and most animal products. Like cheese doesn't, milk does. Milk has glucose.
Right.
But
Yeah.
meat and cheese don't, and so I guess some vegetables have very, very low traces too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did occur to me. I thought, okay, well, if I were to only eat meat and cheese at least, like, wouldn't that eliminate the need for...
You wouldn't be storing blood sugar in at problematic levels, but you might get too low.
This is I think this is how I responded. I don't think I could be. I told you I didn't think I could be fully carnivore, because of that. But then you said honey may or may not be carnivore.
Honey is disputed.
It sounds like it. Yeah,
it's an animal product.
Yeah.
Well, and milk then if
I guess I could have milk too.
And then you've got some levels of glucose.
Yeah.
Maybe. But you looked into it, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You did a bit of research.
I did do a little bit of research. And so what I found about dieting and diabetes, and especially in relation to the carnivore diet, is that the carnivore diet, because of the fasting and the no carbs, it causes the liver's glucose reserves to be used up, essentially, because it's just it's just pulling right for that all the time. And so I think this can cause. See, what was it? Was it high blood sugars? Would it make sense for that to cause high blood sugars because it's just putting glucose into your bloodstream for energy?
What, burning off the glucose?
Mm-hmm. Or would it? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that
you're using fat for energy.
Yeah.
On the carnivore diet. Ketones.
So I guess. Oh, ketones.
Yes.
Okay, this is another. See, this is not something I researched, but this is another word that in the diabetic lingo pops up a lot for us.
Is
ketones.
It really?
Yes, ketones.
Okay.
You don't want to have those.
Oh, really?
In your blood.
Why?
I don't know, but I know that when you are sick, there's these like little strips you can take, and you pee on them, and it detects for ketones. And if you have ketones, this is bad.
Because you've got no blood sugar at all.
I don't think that's true. I think it has to do with like too high of a blood sugar. Can cause ketones to. Maybe there's so much ketones that they would release in your urine. Would that make sense?
I guess so.
Yeah. This is. I feel like I should preface this. This is all speculation right here. This is unresearched territory for us.
Yeah, at the beginning, like we've had lots of discussions about it, haven't we? And you've done research, but we also wanted to throw the conversation open to anybody who can clarify anything on this topic, diabetes and the carnivore diet.
Questions too. So what is the relationship with ketones in the carnivore diet? Is this an energy supply?
It's, as far as I understand it, you go into ketosis if you're only consuming fat and protein. And protein has a role with insulin, doesn't it?
Yeah, we did a little research, and it turns, or with glucose, is that...
when you're on the carnivore diet, you get your glucose from protein.
Yes, and so, because you had the question, does... what was it? You were like, well, then you don't eat sugar.
Yeah, so where do I get my necessary sugar from?
Why am I not dead? And that's a good question.
But it was the protein.
It was the protein, Protein can be converted into glucose as well. Which... But
you often talk about protein, but I sort of want to correct you that no, it's fat that's the energy supply on the carnivore diet.
Yeah, I feel like they're...
It's because... Sorry to interrupt you. Because the body preferentially... Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. I'm no nutritional scientist at all. I'm just a carnivore. But when the body is only consuming fat and protein, animal products, it burns off preferentially the sugar first. That's what gets burnt off first. Yes. So that if you're eating both carbohydrates and fat, you will put on weight because you will store the fat.
Right.
Whereas if you're not consuming the sugar, your body will only have the fat as a recourse. But that's a more sustainable energy source for it, both body and brain. So me with MS, as far as I understand it, as far as I believe it, I need that cholesterol, that fat, for my brain, because that's what myelin is made of, which is what's destroyed with MS.
Right.
So it makes sense to me that I got my memory restored, I got my wits about me again, I just got my brain fog cleared up. Like, to me, that's my brain functioning properly again.
And I guess something that's occurring to me right now too, which could be an interesting topic, is what it means to be well. Because we had this conversation earlier about when you have a chronic illness, it simplifies your life in an unfortunate way where your wants become very few, and one of those big wants is you just want to be well.
Yeah.
You want to be well.
Yeah. And
so,
it simplifies your life, but by limiting it.
Right. And so it's
restricting you.
It's kind of
and complicates your life in many other ways.
Yeah. Do you feel restricted by the carnivore diet at all?
Well, this is an interesting question. I mean, it's come up in a few conversations I've had, where the fact that the diet is so restrictive, but what it's giving you back is your freedom, because you've got your health.
Right.
That's not restrictive.
Yeah.
You know, not being in a wheelchair anymore.
Right.
Is not restrictive.
Yeah.
It's freeing.
Yeah.
And then there's also an element of freedom in the diet, in that you don't need to. It's so straightforward. There's so few ingredients, and it's so easy to cook those ingredients, and you're fasting in between, so you're only eating twice a day, you're not snacking. There's a freedom in that, in a way, because you're not you're not thinking about buying lots of ingredients and cooking lots of elaborate things. And some people may live for that, they may enjoy that and would miss it, but from my point of view, as somebody who was struggling with fatigue, it was a weight lifted off me. I didn't need to think about cooking. It's so easy.
So for you, wellness looks like this elimination of fatigue, or this is part of it. This is part of it for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, because there are. I did. So I guess to summarize my research on diabetics and the carnivore diet is that, it was said on the internet, as most great sentences start, that diabetics are at higher risk for heart disease, and there is also belief on the internet. That cholesterol is the cause of that, which we talked is, I think, in the carnivore diet, a disputed topic.
In the carnivore community, that's a hot topic, and it's disputed. Yeah.
But this is what I have read. So this is, whether it's true or not, this just is. It is not right or wrong.
It's so difficult to navigate because you've got the complexities of an illness, the complexities of your individual case, as well as the not knowing what information you can rely on or what science is the latest truth, because
of course.
Then it's just a case of experimenting for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think you would experiment with the carnivore diet at all? Is it something that you
I think
consider?
I would. Yeah. Well, let me finish my my little speech. Is that so? It's not bad for diabetics. It can stabilize blood sugar, but where it's really good for is type 2 diabetics, where it's shown to not only stabilize and lower blood sugar, but there have been reports of reduced medication needs, and in sometimes cases of discontinuation of use, which is a huge pro. So for type 2 diabetics...
A cure, essentially.
It depends how you define a cure.
Yeah, that's very good.
It's like if you are on the carnivore diet, and then you don't have to use insulin because of that, but that's not a permanent thing, then I wouldn't really call that a cure. But
your body still can't regulate itself.
Right.
You're controlling it in
but
another
it
way.
is a really good way of controlling it.
Right.
So if I were type 2 diabetic, I may be more inclined to try the carnivore diet. Who knows? The one thing that I did learn about dieting for diabetics is that a clinical study published by the American Diabetes Association showed that in a 12-week trial, the best diet was actually a vegan low-carb diet, because not only did it reduce the need for insulin, but it increased sensitivity to insulin too. So this makes your body more responsive to insulin and need less, essentially. So it brings us back to the question of what wellness looks like.
Yeah.
In a modern society, does wellness, because diabetes is an expensive disease, wellness could look like saving your money. It could look like having your body react correctly to the medication you're using, so you don't have to troubleshoot so much. I think if anything, I would try a vegan diet, but I am not really one to diet.
Your current diet works for you, does it? With your insulin?
Well, it's, I feel like with diabetes, it's always difficult to say whether something's working for you, whether it's not. It's all your comfortability with your blood sugars. But I think it is right now. Yeah.
Would you avoid processed foods and like junk food and stuff like that?
I usually avoid those anyway. I think that food, regardless of whether you're dieting for medicinal purposes, has medicinal properties, and you should really lean into those.
And you like mushrooms, don't you?
I love mushrooms. Yeah, all sorts. I've really enjoyed lion's mane.
Oh yeah, that's the great one for repairing myelin.
Yeah, it's a good brain one. Yeah. So yeah, mushrooms have no carbohydrates either. Cheers.
Cheers to that. Well, thanks very much for agreeing to sit and talk about your condition.
Yeah,
it's very personal to talk about a chronic illness.
Yeah, and I guess I never really realized how like similar the experience of chronic illnesses are. I feel like it's not the physical part that we experience the same, but it's more the psychological.
Yeah, and when you talk about weighing up the calculation of the insulin and the sugar, that reminded me, although it's completely different, it reminded me of having to weigh up your energy levels when you have chronic fatigue. How to spend. They talk about.
You're talking about the spoons. This is it. Yeah.
I don't know why it's spoons, but spoon theory. It's like you wake up one day and you may have 5 spoons. One day you may have 3, and you have to spend them wisely. Once they're used up,
right.
and that's your energy levels.
Waking up, do you know if you have 5 spoons? Like you open your eyes in the morning, do you know you have 5?
And you feel rough.
Oh, okay.
You wake up and you feel rough, and you're just like, I'm not going to get much done today.
Yeah.
You just feel weak. The energy isn't there.
Yeah.
There's an absence of wellness. For me, wellness is strength and energy and clarity of thought. That's what wellness means to me, and that's what I have on the carnivore diet. That's what's been restored to me. And I'll take that even if in the future I do get heart disease. I'll take it now. I don't think necessarily that I will.
But this is also an important topic. It's kind of the lesser of two evils. Like let's say for this instance that like it does increase like the risk of heart disease. Like that's okay. There's so many ways that we could die. There's so many ways in the world that we could die.
Yeah.
And I feel like you just
all we know is we're gonna die.
All we know is we're gonna die.
That's
guaranteed. And so I think just doing what you can do to live your best life until that is. Yeah.
There's a logic to that.
There's a logic to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like often when you're put on medication for life, that can compromise your quality of life.
Totally.
And that's a guaranteed compromise. And what you're doing is gambling on the chance that it might. In the case of MS, it's different with diabetes. You need that.
It is different.
Yeah, I mean, with MS though, it didn't even help you feel better. It didn't take away your symptoms. It didn't do anything in the immediate moment. You're calculating that potentially in the future you might reduce the progression, the rate of progression of the disease. Right. It's not even taking it away.
You might reduce the rate of progression. It's like you might slow it down in the future
by a certain amount.
By a certain amount. Yeah. It's like
the stronger the medication, the higher the chance that it will slow the progression, but the worse the side effects. So it was just like adding an extra thing into the equation, an extra variable.
Yeah, it's an extra spoon to juggle.
Yeah.
I guess we're not talking about the same spoons. Let's say eggs. It's an extra egg to juggle.
Yeah. Eggs being a hot topic.
Very big thing in this house. Yeah.
Quite a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway, so fascinating stuff. And I've really enjoyed having you here for so many reasons. And one of those is it's just really interesting to talk to you about chronic illness. Yeah. Somebody with a different one.
It is. I guess I've never had this experience either. Yeah.
Right.
I meet diabetics and I talk to the diabetics, but chronic illness is chronic illness to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's not understood by many people, which is great.
Yeah.
For them, and I would want them to continue to be healthy.
Right.
I wouldn't wish it upon them,
no.
But it's something you can't.
Maybe my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I've had my moments.
I've had my moments of being
I've wished it on a few people. Yeah. At least just so that they understand.
Yeah.
And then just for a week.
Then I take it away.
Yeah.
If I had the power to wish it on someone, I'd hope I have the power to take it away too.
Yeah. And actually, I've experienced it as a blessing in some ways because it's taught me so much.
Yeah.
Not necessarily easy lessons, but I would not have reached a lot of understandings about things, whether that's human nature or the body or what my life, whatever it should be. But it's really been a rigorous teacher.
I feel very similar.
Do you?
I feel very similar. Yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot about what it means to live presently, and I think also how much like people with chronic illnesses like diabetes can depend on technology. Like I can't just throw away my phone and go live in the woods. I have to I have to have some sort of connection. And
because it monitors your phone, tells you when your blood sugar's low.
Yeah.
Or high.
Yeah, and also just for emergency purposes, like I need to. Yeah, there's extra steps which I feel like sucks sometimes, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like if anyone wants to add to this conversation and clarify some questions that we had earlier on, like that would be great because this is a conversation that should have more people and more opinions.
For sure. Well, also you did the Camino, didn't you?
I did do the Camino, yes.
The pilgrimage.
Yes.
That goes near this house.
Yeah. And so that was an interesting thing to do with diabetes. It made traveling a lot harder. It made me have to carry extra weight to store insulin in a cool environment. It made it so I had to plan to refrigerate the insulin whenever I could. Spain is a very, very carb. The diet's very carb heavy, so I had to, calculate the amount of exercise I was doing, or at least keep in mind the amount of exercise I was doing, which would burn glucose, but then the glucose I'd be adding to my blood with carbohydrates, and it was a weird balance. It was honestly pretty tough.
But it was brave of you to do that. That's a brave thing.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, it was. It may be brave, maybe stupid. I don't know. But I came out.
Look how it turned out.
I'm alive.
Fantastic.
All 10 fingers and toes. You can trust that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say I found you to be like exceptionally. And I use the word exceptionally deliberately. Like I think it's exceptional the levels of empathy that you have and sort of psychological insight. And I know you've studied psychology at university, but I also can't help but wonder whether your experience as a chronically ill person at a younger age has given you that perspective that has opened the door to that.
Maybe so. I mean, I thank you for saying that. That's
sure.
Really nice. In what ways do you think maybe? Because it sounds like you're speaking from possibly experience.
I mean, I certainly found that my levels. I hadn't stopped to think about health before I got sick because I'd been so healthy. So that empathy. I might have been an empathetic person before I got sick, but I didn't. You can't be empathetic without some form of shared experience.
Right.
Otherwise, that's sympathy, isn't it?
Right,
Empathy is sharing the same, and it just opened up a new dimension of empathy. That's very powerful for other sick people because it's like a group no one wants to be part of, but anyone could fall into at any moment in their lives.
Yeah.
That you have that experience where the rest of the world you can't keep up. And,
yes, of course, and whether that's me doing that to myself or that actually being a real phenomenon, it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah,
but, I do. This is an interesting thought, and I feel like it's one of those things which is the same as with the case of most life lessons I've learned. Is I feel blind to them until I'm the person who it's happening to. And then boom, there it is. It takes that. I guess I feel kind of blessed in that sense, that I was handed something hard and I have to dig my way out of a deep hole sometimes. But
we were talking about seeking discomfort, weren't we?
Yes, it's a big topic. Yeah,
and we've certainly experienced discomfort this week, haven't we? With the rain.
Oh my gosh, it's
and
been
Stanley.
so rainy. And Stanley, bless his heart. That guy can bark.
Anyway, let's wrap this up. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you so much.
I very much enjoyed having it.
And it's just been wonderful having Karl here at Mushroom Manor. He's been an absolute asset. I've just loved it. He's a great guy and he's just worked so hard and just added so much on so many levels, and I'm just really glad to have met you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Very, very much the same, and also just thank you for having me here and such a unique experience.
Cool, lovely. Okay, well,
thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it and you're not already subscribed, you should probably subscribe.
that's right.
Hit the bell for the notifications.
All of that.
Give it a thumbs up. I don't know. This is what people on other YouTube videos say, so I feel like it should be said.
I never say that, so thanks a lot for saying that.
Yeah, I'll say it so you don't have to.
Wicked,
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
cool.
Okay,
Well,
take care, guys. See you in the next video.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.